Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your host, Herc, here over at Mind Over Emotions, the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. If you haven't already yet, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It's both free. I appreciate it. If you haven't yet, and you guys want to stay up to date on the podcast, head on over to Instagram, give us a follow at Mind Over Emotions _ VDP. And also head on over to TikTok as well and give us a follow there so you can keep up on all the shorts, the reels, and stuff that we post for these upcoming episodes. On TikTok, you can find us at Minor Emotions _ VDP. You guys, hope you guys are ready for this dope episode I have today. Here we go. Let's get to it. Hey, what's going on?
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Can you do me a favor? Can you turn your camera sideways for me?
It is.
Okay, well, the screen wasn't full screen for some reason. There we go. There we
There we
go.
go.
Now we can see you. Now we can see. How you doing today? You doing good, you said?
I'm doing all well. Yes, I'm
All
doing
right.
well.
Be honest right now. Are you nervous?
A little bit, a little bit.
What's got you nervous?
I think because I've watched prior episodes and I've seen a different spectrum of emotions, like ranging from like one girl cried, you know. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to be the big baby on here.
Oh, you're afraid you might cry?
Maybe. I mean, I got to talk about myself.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So speaking of yourself, go ahead and introduce yourself. Name, age, where you're from, and are you a parent?
My name is Nicole. I also go by Jordan. I am living in Florida, but I am from Vegas, military brat. Then I have two kids. I have my son who is 18, and my daughter Irene, who will be 17 in July. So shout out to
Oh.
them.
Well, what's your son's name? You said your daughter's name.
Kenneth. Kenneth. He go
Kenneth.
by Kenny. He go by Kenny.
The government name is crazy. Uh,
Yeah.
all right. So do you
I
come
don't
from a
know.
two?
I like it better almost. Sorry.
Do you come from a two-parent household? Meaning, like, did you grow up with your mom and your dad both in the household?
Yes. Yes.
All right,
My mom and dad were married for 28 years. So,
28 years. That's crazy.
mhm.
Goals. Are they still currently married?
No,
No. All right.
no.
How old were you when they divorced?
28.
Oh, dang, that's crazy. So pretty much they got married when you were born and then divorced when you were 28.
Yeah,
Growing
right
up, would
before
you
I
say
was born.
would you say that you were closer to your mom or your dad?
I think growing up, like childhood wise, I was close with both of my parents. It just really, I mean, dad worked a lot, but then mom was always home. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
naturally, us kids went to mom for everything.
Okay.
But I would say now I'm definitely mama's girl all the way.
So you said us kids. So are you a single kid? Obviously, you're not the only child. How many siblings do you have?
I'm the oldest of five. There are four girls and then my brother.
Okay, and how old is the youngest?
We're 8 years apart, so he just turned 30. Yeah, I'll be
30.
28 this year because yeah, I turned 28 in September, so he just turned 30.
Math is not your subject. No, I'm joking.
At all.
All right, and then how was things for you as a kid, like in the household amongst your siblings?
I mean, we fought like normal kids do. You know what I mean? I think just being around, I mean, we always nitpicked each other, but we honestly like we really did get along for the most part. I don't really think there was anything I can think of or that stands out rather that would say otherwise to me.
Okay, so if we brought your siblings on, I got one of them on the line. No, I'm joking. That would be crazy.
That would be wild.
Yeah, no, if we brought one of your siblings on and we asked them to describe you in 2 words, what do you think they would say?
It depends on which sibling it is.
So we'll say this: you got one brother, so let's have your brother. What would your brother say
Oh,
about
my brother would tell me I'm like he loves me. Like he just loves me.
But that's not describing you in two particular.
Describing me,
Yeah,
if my
two
brother was to describe me,
in 2 words.
um,
What's two adjectives or 2 words that he will use to describe you?
hardworking,
Okay, that's
hardworking.
one.
I mean, that's technically two words, but
That's one descriptive
um,
word, but go ahead.
yes, yeah, he would tell me I'm probably hardworking and a good mom.
Hardworking, good mom. All right. How would your parents describe you as a kid? How do you think they would describe you as a kid?
Um, it's funny that you asked me that. So my mom would actually be the one to be funny about it all and tell me I was very rebellious when I hit teenage years, and but overall, I think childhood wise, like all through school, um, up until I hit high school, then everything was fine. I don't think there were any problems at all. Or not that I was aware of anywhere in the household or anything, but my mom would probably be the one to say that I ended up rebellious.
Okay. So as a kid, like in before high school, did you ever like get in any kind of trouble at school or anything like that?
No, I was into sports and things like that.
What kind of sports you play?
Started with like, I lived on Eglin. Like I said, I was a military brat. My dad was stationed here. We're here at Eglin in Florida. Um, and when we came down here, I've done most of my schooling down here. So we lived on base, we lived off base. But while we lived on base, we did like what's the little youth stuff, like the youth
Recreation?
sports.
Recreation?
Yeah. So I did soccer, cheerleading with that. And then going into middle school, I got into basketball pretty heavily.
Okay. When did sports stop and why?
Sports stopped my eighth grade year, and because I did not make the basketball team, me and one other girl, and we cried our eyes out. And everybody had told me, like when I went to high school, to go ahead and try out again. And I didn't. I don't know what changed for me within that summer, but I ended up keeping book for the boys team throughout high school versus playing.
Would you say that would you say that switching from eighth grade to ninth grade, your social crowd changed and maybe that played a part into why you didn't pick up sports again anymore?
I don't think it really affected whether or not. I think what really affected me was just not making the team. Like it was just me and one other girl who really didn't make the team, and we had been on the team all throughout middle school. So it was kind of like a bummer to us, you know what I mean? And I think that it didn't really, it wasn't the social network. I feel like my social life could have, the people I was choosing to be around coming into high school could have been better. It started off okay, but yeah, I mean, I kept book and I love the game still. I just didn't play.
Well, what's your favorite team?
Well, I'm a Kobe fan, so RIP to him. But I do like the Lakers, although Braun is on our team. I don't like him.
And
That's just me. Hey, to each their own. He's not a bad
yeah,
player. His stats are great, but he came to Eglin one time and it just wasn't what I thought it would be.
yeah. But a lot of times these celebrities they kind of lose their connection with the real life or like with
Mhm.
the normal person or whatever. So sometimes they don't know how to interact. So we have to give them a little bit of grace, you know.
Oh yeah,
Because
for sure, for
you think
sure.
about it, even with just the things that we do, once we reach a certain stature within our jobs, within our homes, within our communities, our schools, and stuff like that, things start to change. Like we don't understand, we don't hang out with the same crowds anymore. We feel awkward, or things feel awkward when we hang out with them again, or we come around them. So just kind of, I've learned to give them grace because I kind of had a similar experience when I met Dwayne Wade. I felt like that he was just for lack of better words, an a-hole. Um, but at the same time, as I got older, matured, my train of thought changed, and I started understanding just how people think and how people are and just how the world is. I realized that, like I said, um, as you grow, your circle gets smaller, your focus gets smaller, and you kind of lose touch with the things that you used to be accustomed to. So I'm not the biggest fan of LeBron. I'm not like one of these like die-hard LeBron fans or anything like that. But at the same time, I think the only athlete that I'm a die-hard fan of is probably Steph Curry. Um,
Good.
but
He's good.
I have nothing negative to say about LeBron or
I mean, I don't either. Like I said, it was a meeting thing, I think, for me. But and like I said, his stats are great. You know what I mean? I mean, they compare him to Michael Jordan all the time. So
it's like one of those things where it's like first impressions, tells everything.
exactly,
So
exactly.
you only get that one first impression. So how was high school for you? Were you a social
High
butterfly? Were you a recluse? Were you an introvert? Like how were you in high school?
When high school first started, so even going through middle school, I had a good group of friends, but I didn't really go out and hang out with them. So I think that kept me for back. I used to tell my mom, I'm like, you always want me on lockdown. You know what I mean? I'm like, you just want us locked down. We can't do anything. And in high school, that's when I started rebelling against that and wanting to hang out with people. And yeah, so I am a social butterfly for sure. I try to introvert a little bit. And
Did you
as I've gotten older, I've learned how to kind of calm it down and not be so out there. But yeah, I used to definitely want to rip and run all the time.
uh so growing up when you were in high school, how did you see your life post high school? Like what did you envision?
Oh, I knew that one since I was 11 years old. I had wanted to join the military.
Okay.
Hmm.
And what happened to that?
So like I said, I was 11. We did a father daughter work day, and I just knew I wanted to join. And so when I graduated high school, it was 2006, and I ended up finding out I was pregnant a month after I graduated. So I prolonged it, but also going through high school, I ended up being diagnosed with psoriasis. Um,
For those who
so
don't know what psoriasis is, what is psoriasis?
Psoriasis hurts for one, but it is a autoimmune disease or what have you that basically the scientific breakdown from my understanding is that your white blood cells are so overactive that they make your skin cells overproduce. So that's where a lot of people like their skin will be like flaky, or mine's arthritic, so mine's in my joint areas. So I get rough patches of my skin that, are overproducing, and it hurts, it cracks. It's just like eczema on crack though. Psoriasis doesn't go away and eczema will come and go.
So with dealing with psoriasis, did you during high school or during this time when you got diagnosed with it, did you ever deal with any kind of like body shaming?
Yeah, well, not so much the body shaming, but I remember kids like when it started to flare up, like I used to lie about it at first because I really didn't know what it was. So, and I used to skateboard. I was a big tomboy back then too. Like I was just outdoors, riding bikes, skating, whatever. And I remember I had fell off my skateboard legitimately and I had scraped my elbow. And then it just didn't go away. Like my scar didn't go away. It just stayed as psoriasis.
Yeah.
And well, my mom thought it was like a chemical something from the job that I had at that point in time, but come to find out, yeah, it's actually psoriasis. And I just remember kids being like, "Oh my God, what happened?" Or like, "What is that?" Or "Are you contagious?" You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Contagious
"No."
is crazy.
Right? So,
But obviously because you had to lie about it, obviously it was something that you weren't proud of.
oh
Um,
yeah, no, I
and
I probably am my own worst critic when it comes to my skin.
but okay, so my question for you is, I know kids were like, give you a little bit of a hard time. How did that affect you mentally during that time? Like your self-esteem, like your mentality, like how
The
did that affect you?
self-esteem thing was, yeah, it doesn't make me feel pretty. I mean, even still, I deal with it still. There's just something that's not going to go away from me. And I actually got medicine for it. And in the last year, my skin completely cleared up. And, people seen a boost in my confidence. I think the people I was around definitely saw a boost in my confidence. But it goes into the pain spectrum of mine as well because mine is arthritic. So being
Okay.
on all them joint areas, if I bend or if I make a fist and my knuckles crack open, it definitely it hurts, but yeah, it's a self esteem thing for sure.
Yeah, you better not be out here trying to fight nobody. You might have a flare up and then you can't watch.
I mean, they say stress definitely makes it flare up, but I mean, if that's the case, then people with psoriasis stay stressed all the time because psoriasis doesn't really go away without um what are they steroid shots.
Okay. So obviously, the basics and the premise of this podcast is to encourage, uplift, and to guide people to, get through their problems that they might be dealing with. So dealing with psoriasis, if you had somebody who, was dealing with like an adolescent or just even an adult who was dealing with some kind of like illness, deformity, or something that they could not control, and it's just something they're gonna have to deal with life, and they're struggling with it. What kind of advice would you give them to, keep a positive mind, to work on their self-esteem, just to encourage them to be, to keep going? What kind of advice would you give them?
I would definitely say, as I've tried so many different things to help like ease or cure or get rid of the different my psoriasis. Um, Try different things and find what's comfortable for you. There are a lot of outlets that you don't have to pay for them expensive steroid shots. I got mine for free. I had to pay for my lab work. So there's different
But on the mental,
programs
on the mentality side of it, like
on a mentality side of it.
to keep their, like I said, to keep their self-esteem up, to keep their morale go up, to keep them, in a positive mindset, because dealing with that, like for me, like I have a thyroid issue, and even with that, like that can kind of become like overwhelming, can become stressful,
Mhm.
can make me feel sometimes like I'm inadequate, or like that I have it harder than others. So I have to daily tell myself, that even though I was blessed with this, a thyroid condition, I like to say I'm blessed with it because I'm unique and I'm me. So it's a blessing, and it's a part of my story. So I'm never going to
Mhm.
speak negative of it. But my point is, I still have to wake up every day and remind myself that even though I have this blessing, and that other people don't, that I'm still on the same playing field and I'm just as good as them. So what kind of things would you, encourage them, and what kind
I mean,
of
I think I can counter right off of that. Just reminding, uh, waking up and reminding yourself that yeah, you're beautiful. You have this to deal with and it is what it is, but that you're not alone in that fact. Like Kim K, even celebrities deal with psoriasis. Kim Kardashian has it, and you never know because obviously she's got medicine for hers, or when she found out, she was able to go and get it. You know, um, it's not the end of the world. It's not. It's just a little skin disorder. There's people out there missing legs. This isn't the end of the world. So, just to remember that it's something that yes you deal with, but it's not going to kill you. You know what I mean? This isn't going to be the end of you.
Okay. How would you describe your relationship with your children?
I love my kids. They're my whole world. They really are. Our relationships are really good. My kids are very open with me, which I absolutely love. So
Do you find that there's a balance that, or maybe like a gray line between parenting and having a, fun friendship type relationship with your children? Because in today's society, a lot of parents have went to what they call gentle parenting, right?
mhm.
So they're not big on, like, spankings, stuff like that. They try to take that, like, friendship approach. Do you think that the old school way of parenting, being hard on your children, being stern, or do you think gentle parenting, is the way to go? Or do you think that there is a happy medium between the both, and why?
I definitely was going to say I feel like before you even said it that there is a happy medium. I feel like now, don't get me wrong. I was raised more old school. Mom and dad, we got whoopings when we was bad, and we had our timeouts and all that, you know, and my kids, um, so it was. I don't even remember how old they were. It was like 2012, 2011 was the last time I whooped my children.
Okay. Um, do you are
So
you the are you the custodial parent of your kids or the non-custodial?
unfortunately, the non.
Okay. How did that affect you?
That's probably like I'd probably say that was the one thing outside of my child. Like, I don't really think of anything really traumatic like childhood wise, but like that messed me up. That one messed me up to not have because I had my kids and I felt like what was happening as far as them being removed, and it was because I moved out of state ultimately. And my kid's father, he felt like I was going to be like just taking these kids away from him, Well, I had went to him for like a whole year before I even moved. I wanted to make sure he was going to be okay with it, and we, of course, figure out the traveling and the timeshare for the children. And he would blow me off, and I mean, I tried to do it legally and everything, all the things the right way, and he just blew me off and like he said, "Yeah, okay, go, go, go." But as soon as I was gone, I never forget. I was on a bus on my birthday, bringing my kids back because he went to the courthouse. After I moved, so it hurt. It did, and it still does. I think that's still something I deal with.
Did you ultimately not regain custody of your children because you lived out of state, or what played a part into that?
Um, Honestly, at the end of the day, things for me, I would say they weren't bad right after, but like when I did finally move back home, things kind of got not so great. So for me, it was accepting that I didn't have exactly what they needed right that second and that their dad did. So to swallow my own pride in a sense and say, hey, you know what? You guys are gonna live with your dad predominantly, but because he's got the house and here I am, I'm trying to, get myself back together down here after moving back and such. And then, as they've gotten older, it's just not something I've wanted to go to the courts with. I just don't feel like them courts know my kids or me, or how can they tell me that he's the better parent or I'm the worst parent or vice versa. You know what I mean?
I totally agree that a lot of times, unless there's like, um, extreme circumstances, I
Hmm.
think that majority of the time that courts is the wrong way to go. But a lot of times you have to, because too many times do the mom and the dad, they bring their own problems into the
Hmm.
raising of the child and what's best for the child.
Right.
They kind of like use what their experiences that they went through with the other parent as a excuse and a hold to be able to use the children as pawns, right? So I totally agree with you on that. So what kind of relationship do you and your child's father have right now?
It's we co-parent pretty well. I'm not gonna lie, but we have our moment. The one thing we cannot talk about is money. He has me on child support and I pay it. And then I also take care of my kids outside of that. I buy them all the name brand shoes and clothes and whatnot. And, they want a pair of Beats or whatever. I typically work two jobs. So it's kind of like a role reversal almost for me, where I'm the guy in this situation and he's home all day with the kids, and I mean, he works for the school, and I mean, he does his thing. And we went through a lot. And, I just, he confuses me. Let me put it that way. He very much so confuses me. Like, he'll have me on child support, had me on child support all this whole time. And then not too long ago, within the last year, he'll be asking me out on a date. Just makes no sense to me. Yeah.
How
So,
long have you guys been broken up?
since Irene was 9 months old,
And she's how old now?
she's turning 17 in July.
Oh man, my man said he's trying to spin the block. He might.
No.
Hey, maybe you can go down that path, get off child support. No, I'm just joking.
I mean, it's already ending. They're about to be 18. Well, my son is 18, so.
Okay. Do they have dreams and aspirations of going to college?
My son just graduated high school and he does want to go. We have a community college type thing here, or like a somewhere you could go and get certified, like ASC certified for mechanics, or you
Like
could go and
vocational
get
school.
culinary. Yeah, it's like a vocational. Thank you. And so he is interested in. He wants to do mechanic stuff. He finally decided.
Well,
So
do know that if he goes to college, that your child support won't stop.
yeah, I know.
I just want to throw that out there to you.
Oh,
Um,
I know.
so have you ever been married before?
No, no.
Okay. Do you have admirations of being married?
I will say I did. I was engaged once, and it didn't work out, and that's okay. Of course, I think a lot of females think about that. I mean, we're girls, you know what I mean? And the girly aspect, the dress, the hair, the makeup, the nails, having her princess day, so to speak. Um, I wouldn't mind it. I've kind of, because of the way the world is nowadays, I don't try to like force that or like try. I used to have a 5 year rule. Like, don't talk to me about marriage until we hit 5 years. Like, I want to know the ins and outs with you. I want to know that we can, live together and, be around each other's families and all that stuff. So, not going to say necessarily that still say I have that 5 year rule. Um, but I would want to be in I wouldn't mind having my forever.
Okay, so because my podcast is all about being honest and just telling your story, right? So, what things do you think that you did incorrectly to lead you to be now 38 years old or about to be 38 years old and to have never been married? What problems or not problems, but what do you think that you've done? I
Like
guess
my role in it and
yeah,
all,
yeah,
like
like
to not
what do
be.
you yeah, like yeah, exactly.
Um, I didn't know how to shut up. I ain't gonna lie. I did not know. I was a little feisty person. Like, if there was an argument, I wasn't gonna back down. And sometimes I feel like now looking back, like there could have been moments that have been saved or, in different relationships without the arguing. If I would have just walked away or, hey, you know what, we're gonna pick this up another time. We can't do this right now. Or I used to go to the gym and all that stuff too. So it was like, okay, you can go to the gym or you can, go to your mom's house or whatever. you
Do
know,
you think that you may have struggled in relationships with acquiescing in your behaviors?
what do you mean by
So,
acquiesce? That's a big word.
acqui so first off, let me explain the question, then I'll explain acquiesce means okay, acquiesce just means like to align with, to change your behaviors, like if you want XYZ, you need to have XYZ on your part lined up to make those match, right?
hmm
Um, you can't, like for instance, you can't be wanting to be married, but then be for the streets
Right, right, right,
and
right.
playing, right? That's just like a general thing, right? So, do you think that, like I said, do you think that you struggled with acquiescing your behaviors, meaning separating yourself from the things that you used to do or the things that are not going to allow you to be courted in an aspect that's going to lead to marriage? Do you think that people might have kept you in a certain bubble or a certain place in your relationship and it couldn't move forward because of things that you might have done wrong or that you're not doing to make them believe that you should be their
That's
wife?
a good question. That's a really good question. I'm not perfect, and I know I'm not. And so with that, there probably is a whole lot that I could have done differently. Um, I think it didn't necessarily stem from people. I think it was what I felt I had to do. So
Mhm.
like job wise, my job wasn't, you know, the military, obviously. I was a dancer for 15 years, so being in the club setting a lot of times would be difficult for my significant others, in the past. Just because dancers get labeled, there's all kinds of stuff. The lifestyle of it all, really.
Okay.
So,
All right. Before we get further into this conversation, if you haven't already, go ahead and head over to Instagram. Follow us on Instagram at Minor Emotions, the podcast. Excuse me, that's on TikTok. On Instagram, it'll be at Minor Emotions underscore VDP. Go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. Drop in the comments and let me know what you think so far of Nicole's story. And if you have any questions about her story, go ahead and drop those in the comments as well, and we'll get those answered for you. Not live, but we will drop the answers for you later at a later date. Maybe we even have her come back on, okay? All right, so what kind of things are you doing right now to, like I said, to acquiesce your behaviors to become married, since being married is something that you would love to be? Like, what kind of things do you think that you need to be doing?
well, first you got to have a relationship. So there's that.
But you don't need
um,
to, but you don't have to wait until, like I tell people all the time, like, like you when you're dating, you don't have to wait until you're married to act like you're married, right? So
oh
like,
no, yeah,
right.
acting like, yeah, no, I agree.
But even before you get a relationship, right? As I'll tell you from a man's perspective, right? When we're actually actively looking for a spouse or a significant other, we look for that woman to have the qualities already from jump when we are approaching her, right? So if we see you out in the streets and you're looking like, uh, for lack of better terms, like thottish, or like you're looking like you're just for the streets or a party animal, stuff like that, we're not gonna approach you on a level of seriousness, like building a relationship with you. So with that in mind, what kind of things do you think that you need to be doing right now, or what kind of things are you actively doing to, attract the man that will hopefully, one day, court you and marry you?
Um, well, it goes back into, I mean, it's been a lot of life changing going on in my world, anyways, for the last few years. So for me, obviously, getting away from the people that, that club scene, staying out of that, I've definitely changed. Like I said earlier, I believe I try to be more introvert now. So I try to. It's not punishing myself because I could go out every night. It wouldn't bother me to do that, but at the same time, it does because I'm like I don't need to be out every night, and I like to think that I do certain things. Obviously, cook, keep house, whatnot. If that's to me in a marriage you're as a couple you're gonna be doing those things, you know what I'm saying? So um it's not that I don't feel like I don't portray marriage material. um I would probably say honestly the only thing I would have to work on would be just how quick. So my mom calls me mouth because I back talk a lot, so just trying to control my own mouth a lot
What do
of
you,
times.
let me ask you this. What do you think that the main things men look for when they're looking to court a woman?
Honestly, nowadays men don't look to court a woman. Not the ones I'm running across, anyways. You know what I mean? They just want to smash and go. But
But
um,
that's why I asked the previous question, um, about the things that you're doing, because I'm not here to point blame and I'm not here to point fingers, but I am here to, like just the basis of the podcast is called Mind Over Emotions, right?
mhm,
So we have to have a stronger mentality and have to understand things. And once we understand things and we can make better decisions and we can, acquiesce our behaviors and acquiesce our lifestyles to align with the things that we want, whether that's relationships, whether it's that achieving our goals, et cetera, So what do you think that even if you're running across, some not so good men, uh, to attract the men that you want, what kind of things do you think that he's looking for in the woman or in you?
um, I will say I feel like more so nowadays a man would be more attracted to like somebody who is more conservative, just for fact that social media. I mean, everything is so predominantly sexualized. So I feel like bringing it back almost. You know what I'm saying? That might be one thing that could attract somebody. The fact that who they're trying to court is actually going to look the part, I guess. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be out here in the streets and in hoochie shorts showing their butt to everybody, things like that.
So that's one thing that men
Mhm,
look for. But the basic things that men look for when we're trying to court a woman is, for sure the sex part, right? Obviously, men are sexually driven creatures, for the most part. So that's like the number one thing. But the sex thing doesn't even have to always go into intimacy, like intercourse. It doesn't have to deal with that. You're
mhm,
100% correct as well. Like, we don't want to marry, just like that old Ludacris song, use a hoe. We don't want to turn a hoe into a housewife. We're
mhm,
not in the business of doing that. We're not trying to do that. We don't want to have the woman who we're walking through Walmart with her, and every dude's walking by smiling because he's subscribed to her YouTube, her OnlyFans, or
right.
because he's been with her, or whatever the case may be. We want to have, even though we know everybody has a past, that's for sure. We still want to have some kind of, mystery, right? Like,
Mhm,
so there's that, and then the other part is, I explained this before, is the submission part. Most women these days, they harp so much on independence and women's rights and all that kind of stuff, which is perfectly fine, 100% fine. but at the same time, real men, we're leaders, right?
Mhm.
And you're not are you really a leader if you have nobody following you? If you're the person who wants to be with you and wants to build a life with you, if they won't even follow your lead, are you truly a leader? You see what I'm saying? And so therefore, as men, we don't want to be with a woman who we're telling her we're going down this path and you're say trying to pull down this path. You're going the opposite
Right.
direction, right? At that time, we'll just say, hey, you know what? Go do your thing. I'm gonna go do my thing, and maybe God will bless me with a woman who will follow my lead. Nothing
Mhm.
against you. So there's that part. And then that also goes into the next part, which is the nurturing part, right? So as men, we look for women who kind of resemble our mothers in a sense,
Mhm.
right? Meaning like have that motherly nature to them. Maybe you don't have kids, and that's fine. And no, we're not your kid at the same time, so there's that too. But the cooking, the cleaning, the affection, and that's a two-way street as well. I understand that, but you're a female looking for a male. So, if you lack affection, there's a lot of women out there now who lack affection. They don't express affection
Mhm.
openly or easily. So those kind of things, like I said, the sex, submission, and the what was the other one I told you? Lord, I can't think right now.
Sex, submission.
And nurturing. I had another word in my head. That's what it was. I was like, I ain't using that word, but
I mean,
yeah,
I agree with all that too, but I feel like also, for me personally, if I was gonna find somebody, it probably would not be here. It probably would not be here. I'm just saying, but
but I think a lot of people say that, especially when you still live in your hometown, correct?
yeah, I grew up around here, so yeah, knowing everybody. I mean, I've only had three real relationships, like solid, that were long lasting, but yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know about around here.
All right. So this is everybody's favorite part of the podcast, which is where you get to spin my infamous minor emotions wheel.
Mhm.
This wheel contains several different topics. Some might be a little tough for you, um, but because you're not here in person in the studio, I will spin it for you. You just tell me, do you want me to spin it hard, fast, slow? What do you want me to do?
However you want, go ahead, just
All
spin
right.
it.
What color you want to land on?
The one I'm wearing.
Red. All right. Let's hope
I
you get
don't know.
lucky.
I don't know.
Let's hope you
That
get
wheel.
lucky
I
with
didn't even
red.
look at the wheel, and the wheel is staring at me. Okay, so I don't know what the topics are.
All right. So you landed on self-medicate. All right. So when you think about things you've been through, the traumas you've been through in life, and when you get ready to cope with those things that you do, have you ever went through a phase in your life or a troubling time where you self-medicated? Self-medicating meaning like um, dabbled in drugs or dabbled in alcohol or whatever the case may be, something that got helped you get over it, something that you're maybe not so proud about. Tell us
Um,
about that.
okay, so yeah, I always smoked weed from the time I can remember really starting smoking. I think I was in high school when I started smoking weed, which to me that didn't really it wasn't a bad thing, or it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. It was just like mediocre. Everybody was kind of doing it. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times, like nowadays, it's becoming legal and stuff. So to me, that's really not like a bad thing. But yeah, I definitely did it. Was it to self medicate and take my brain off things? Yeah, a lot of times, or just to even just make my brain stop so I could sleep. Um, and then in 2016, um, I had met somebody at the club, and there was a situation that happened, and basically I turned to another drug and cocaine, and I used it for a short time, but I just remember trying to use so much of it. Like there was one night where I just remember I laid in bed and I was like, I'm not gonna wake up in the morning, you know what I mean? Like, and at that time my wavelength of my thought process was that it really wouldn't matter if I was still around or not. So, and I couldn't take all these problems and all this stuff that's here on earth, like I couldn't just I wasn't going to be able to take that with me. So I even, what does it matter right now? Kind of thing.
What got you to the
Then
point where you felt like you needed to self-medicate?
I was just sad. I was sad about the situation I was mad about the situation that happened. I was sad because, it definitely ruined some friendships, relationships, all of that. So, uh that one, yeah, that situation wasn't fun.
Uh, was uh was cocaine the worst party favor that you ever
Yeah.
participated?
Yeah.
You never experienced with you never experimented with anything else?
Mm-mm.
All
I
right.
never, and honestly, I don't know. I never liked cocaine, so I knew it was stemming from just bad thoughts and the people I was around. I'll run into somebody, and if somebody sees me say hi or something, to those old people, uh, it's very easy that I get associated of being doing the same thing still.
Yeah. Where was
Which
your
I'm
where
not.
was your where was your family at, like your mom, your dad, your siblings at during this time where you were turning to party favors to
So
self-medicate?
I had just moved back. And so when I first moved back, I actually had roommates when I came back. And my parents lived around the corner still. I think they were still going through their divorce and I think it was just a bunch of stuff at that point in time. I do remember I did wake up, obviously, and my parents were there to check on me. They were like, Mom, when my mom doesn't hear from me in a few days, she either starts calling people or starts looking for me herself. So me and her have very open lines of communication. Um, I wouldn't say that me and my dad don't. We just don't really communicate as much anymore. He's remarried and he lives his life. He's gone through his own obstacles, um, with health and stuff, and cancer and whatnot. So we just don't really talk too much. Not like I would have imagined when I was a kid, I guess you could say.
Would you say that your family is the best support system that you have right now?
That's a good question, and I know that I paused, so like people are gonna sit there and be like, "Dang, she don't, she can't trust her family or rely on her family." Um, my mom is
Excuse me.
one of my very, very best friends. Like now, you know what I'm saying? Like when I was a kid, obviously we rebel a little bit. We don't want to always tell our parents everything or what have you. But she is she's huge for me, and she actually brings mental health up all the time with me because I'm probably one of the five that is just old school to a point where I don't when I think mental health, I kind of roll my eyes. You know what I mean? Because it's
Why
like
is that?
we didn't grow up with, oh, you're depressed, or oh, you have anxiety, or it wasn't as clear as it was today. But we also didn't have all these outlets. Like I grew up, I didn't get my first phone until I was 18. You know what I'm saying? And my kids are like 10 with phones. So times have definitely changed. But yeah, we didn't grow up with all of that. You know, oh, yeah, I'm depressed. So to me, it was always an excuse. When
Yeah.
somebody said mental health, it was always like an excuse for me. Like I don't want to make an excuse for myself and be like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna blame it on depression. You know what I
So
mean?
when did that change for you? When did that mindset change for you, and what caused it?
2020, I was with an ex of mine and we got into trouble legally. We had gotten pulled over and they found I had my concealed to carry. We had just broke up, so I was actually bringing all the guns back to where I was going. And he was with me, and we got pulled over. First off, they thought I was somebody else. And I just remember telling the cop, I'm like, dang, you tried me. I don't look nothing like that girl. And he was about to let us go, but then my ex's vehicle, it reeked of marijuana. So he ended up searching, and I had no idea, but there was other stuff in the car. And basically, what happened is the cops they messed up somewhere, so both of us got arrested. But then when we got arrested, I got put on probation. We both did. And at the year mark, I violated. And I had to sit in jail for 3 months. And then I had an option because of the charges. I could either do about a year and a half of time and go down the road, or I could go and do a program, which I thought the program was only gonna be like 30 days. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. Bet I don't gotta go. I'm getting out of here. I did not want to be there. It wasn't a place for me for sure. But sitting there with myself I mean, yeah, I had a bunkie, but she was old and we were on totally different schedules. But sitting there by myself, the dreams that I had, I would start writing my dreams down while I was in there. They were really, really vivid. But I knew when I went to the program, it took me almost until the end to actually start really opening up with our group or with our counselors and stuff like that. I mean, I successfully completed everything. I'm so proud of myself that is behind me now, you know what I'm saying? But going through it, that's when I started really realizing, like, okay, maybe I'm not doing crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Um,
or
do you,
and just to deal with the past BS that I had, or that I felt I had, because when I was in that program, I didn't feel like I could relate to anybody. I wasn't using the stuff that they were using. I
it was
wasn't.
like a substance abuse program?
Yeah. So we did like AA, NA, once a week. We met every morning and we did there was always like it was a live-in one, you had to be there. So they had one dorm, the females had another dorm, and we would all get up in the morning and we would sit in a class and then we had like they basically rescheduled me, which was really good for me because I definitely do better with like the discipline and the structure. Um, Even though I have that wild child side, I definitely operate better with the structure and
So,
you know,
question for you. Obviously, because our kids, a lot of times they, I guess you could say, reap the benefits or the consequences of our actions and our decisions, right? So,
mhm,
I'm gonna jump out a limb here and assume that when all this was going on, that your kids were affected, right?
mhm.
And this is gonna be like a multi-part question. Do you think that, how do you think that that affected them, first off?
With my son, so my son, he is so passive, right? Like he's just nonchalant. He'll deal with things as they come. My daughter is very verbal with me. So she definitely let me know, hey, mom, I'm angry, why are you in there, type of thing. But I made sure that while I was away from them, or couldn't see them face to face every day, like I like to, um, I called them every night and I would ask them about school. I would try to make it as normal for how unnormal things were.
So, how do you, when you got out and you had to reconnect with them, and they're obviously, while you're sitting and dealing with the things that you had to deal with, their life is still going on, right?
Mhm.
So, what kind of steps did you have to take, physically and then emotionally as well, to kind of like, one, regain their trust, two, to you know rejoin their life, where it's at, not taking it back to where it was when you were incarcerated.
When I came home, and my mom, even while I was in the program, because so I live in Fort Walton, but I was in Pensacola for this program. So they would do visiting times and stuff. They only did a couple of them, but of course we hit holidays and things like that. Every weekend it was either my mom or a really good friend, a family friend of ours that would they rotated weekends. And because I'm a shoe head, so like I had to have my shoes swapped out every week. You know? So mom, but I also, mom would bring me food or my Dr. Pepper or the things that I enjoyed. And she would bring the kids out there. Now, part of the process to completing the the place, I guess, was that you had to reach out. It was almost like a 12-step program in a sense. I did end up writing my family members individually. I ended up writing exes. I've wrote my children. Just, but for me, I think it's I could show it better than I can tell it. So for me, when I came home, instantly getting into work, getting an apartment, doing all the things, and then I showed them. I mean, I wasn't that didn't make me who I am. You know what I mean? I'm still your mom. I'm still your daughter. I'm still your sister. So I made some bad decisions, and we're gonna do better. You know what I mean? We're just gonna do better. And I did. And I held those jobs down. One job I held down for 3 years, and then the other one I held for two, and was meal prepping, cooking for the kids. I mean, I made the time. I don't know how, but was definitely in a better place.
So, obviously, with this podcast, right? Vulnerability, transparency is, a thing, right? Um, can you think of a time where you would just say that maybe you have like the biggest regret or the biggest if you could go back and change how things happen, and you can go into detail if you want about what happened, but like a time when you're, growing up throughout your lifespan so far, where it's like, okay, well, things were like rock bottom and you like to change it. Like what happened? Tell us about that time.
Okay, recently, I mean, I not gonna say I completely have hit rock bottom or anything like that. But recently, and back in October, I feel like it was more of another just dumb decision on my behalf, on my own personal behalf. Um, I started trying to date somebody, and they had a situation going on as well, but we moved in together. And so basically, I gave up my apartment that I had had for years. You know what I'm saying? For a few years now, and trusted this person off of what they told me, what we were going to do. Like, okay, we sat down, we spoke about it. Hey, this is what we're going to do. Cool. And that didn't last but like a month or two. And so I stayed in that apartment. He left, but I stayed in that apartment until December. And then I've been staying with the close family friend since. Um, and things are finally getting back to where my money is fine enough for me to you know. But down here, everything's so expensive. So expensive.
What kind of advice would you give to a single parent, male or female, who has went through trials, went through life, at one point had their children, maybe lost their children, or maybe they never even had their children, but they're struggling with not being able to be a part of their children's life on a daily basis, 24/7, pretty much be the custodial parent. What kind of advice would you give them to encourage them that you can still be a productive, involved parent without being the custodial parent, for one, and for two, what kind of things would you give? What kind of advice would you give them to encourage them mentally to, like, even when those times where it's stressful, when you're missing events and stuff like that, to get through it?
That's another good question because I still struggle. That's something I still struggle with. But what I do is obviously my son's 18 and my daughter's about to be 17, so they're a little more older. It's not like they're little babies or anything anymore. Um, there have been tons of moments I've missed out on. Geez, when I moved in 2012 and then had to turn around and bring them back, I didn't just up and leave everything I had in Virginia. You know what I mean? So like when I moved, I went back and I was trying to like work and do things. And, obviously the situation, it caused a lot of the back and forth, like traveling for me just to see my kids. But who I was dating at the time was very supportive. So that was never something that was an issue. You know what
But
I'm
what kind of,
saying?
but okay, so the answer to the question is, what kind of advice would you give somebody though? Like, I mean, I understand that you went through those things and you missed those moments, and that's the premise of the question, is because obviously you went through these things and you've survived them and you've come out and you're here to tell your story today. So somebody who's still going through those things and struggling with it, what kind of advice would you give them?
Find simple things that you can do with your kids. Because, I think I seen it on one of your episodes where maybe the Father's Day one actually, where y- I think that you guys got into speaking about a lot of times somebody uses their kids as like leverage or, oh, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. So,
Relationship for compliance.
right. Okay. So I deal with that a lot. So for me, with my kids being a little bit older now, and still dealing with the fact that I don't have them living with me 24/7, I make it a point out of my day, especially if I'm at work because I cook. So like today, I can see that both of my kids are at work hey, are you guys hungry? That's the one thing, I think people definitely come together over a lot is food, obviously. Everybody's got to eat. And I enjoy cooking and I enjoy making sure my kids have food, something to eat, but it also gets me my hug or, helps me feel better about the day because I saw my kid. And yeah, I got to go where they are. They don't always come to me. They're teenagers,
So would you say that probably the best advice to give them would be uh to be actively present in whatever space you can be,
Mhm.
and whenever you can show up,
$100%.
whenever you're awarded the opportunity to show up, make it a priority to show up.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
All right. The reason why I'm asking this question is right is because a lot of times when you're not the custodial parent, you miss out on a lot of things, whether it's birthdays, holidays, parties, you know, dances, all these different things. You miss out on some of these key hot moments in children's lives, right? And so sometimes it can be discouraging. So that's why I was just curious, like what kind of things like what kind of advice would you say to give them? Because that could be tough, and it could be overwhelming for some people. Not everybody's strong enough to understand it and deal with it. It's just like why,
And
why?
and that's very, very true. Like I said, I still do struggle with the emotional aspect of things, um, as far as not having them and stuff like that. Like I said, I found outlets to be active with my children. Yeah, I've missed out on a lot of things. It I don't know, my kids, they've not made it hard for me though either. You know what I mean? Like they've adapted very well over the years to, even like with me getting in trouble, they adapted. They had grandma, they had certain people that they could definitely go to if needed, or I would tell them, you can call this person, you can call this person, if you can't get a hold of me, you call them, so just reminding them that I am here constantly. Or I'll see I keep in touch with the kids like over little things. Like I saw a Facebook thing and I'll send them a Facebook reel. And you know how they have like the Facebook reels is like, oh, my child or my son or to my daughter. And it'll be some like sappy love thing. Like I'm constantly sending them those. Um, just as reminders that I'm here, that I'm thinking about them. Um, doing the food thing. Or like me and my son actually recently, last week we went skating together. And I had so much fun with him. You know what I mean? So, little things that they're interested in, even if you're not. I mean, it shows them that so long as you show up a lot of times, or they know that you're there and they can confidently feel that you're there, even when you're not in the same room. I think that's big.
All right. So I like to call this next part of the interview uh, the vulnerable.
Oh, shoot.
The being vulnerable part of the podcast, right? Because vulnerability is a key part in healing. Because a lot of times when we have conversations regarding our mental health, we like to talk about the parts that we're most comfortable talking about, right?
Hmm.
But in order for us to fully heal, we have to dig deep. We have to find the root, right? Because if you think about it, if you only focus on the problem and never the root, you're never going to go nowhere, right? You're going to keep going in circles, right?
Hmm.
So, with that being said, think of a think of a time and think of some people maybe that may have caused you some hurt, may have caused you some pain. Um, and what would you like to, with that in mind, what would you say to them today, um, with their new mindset, the new mentality that you have in regards to the situation, in regards to where you're at now?
Somebody who hurt me. What were your things? The
Somebody who might have either caused you some pain, caused you some hurt, um, caused you some trauma. It's up to you if you would like to go into details about what happened to give some uh, baseline on what was going on or what the pain was or what the problem was. But what would you say to that person today or those people?
I can think of a time when I got hurt. I was in the last relationship that I had. me and him like everything was always good, but then when we argued, but then when we split up, because we did that whole back and forth stuff a lot. Um, he ended up it really wasn't him, but he had started seeing somebody else. And I guess I had texted him about something, the phone bill or what have you. I don't even know. And because at the time we were, still on the same phone plans and stuff like that. I think it was the phone. But he ended up sending me a video of them being sexually active, and I was flabbergasted. I remember I was at work and I just cried, like cried, ugly cried. And I didn't know what to say. That kind of messed my head up a lot. But if I had anything to say, I don't really say that I have anything to say to him right now, because at the end of the day, like, we've gotten past that. Um,
So
it's
that's
not
what
that
I'm
it got
saying.
swept under the.
Speak to that, like how you getting past it and how, it kind of like affected you today, like going into relationships, moving forward, and just your mentality right now.
I know for sure. I have trust issues. And it does delve not just in a relationship aspect of me being with one other person. It has come from a lot of my relationships. So being able to talk to people and for them to not like get mad at you, judge you, react, in a sense. That's helpful. It is. Just and like, hey, for me, I've learned how to say I feel like X, Y, or Z, right? And then I just leave it at that. There's no need to go have this full blown argument or whatever because I have a feeling. That feeling can go away. I know it can. I think genuinity out of somebody, like if you do something to somebody and you're genuinely you like that no intention was meant to hurt that person or whatever, I think that you'll be able to feel that. And then they would apologize because they know it's going to hurt you if they're really close to you, or if you know what I mean, if they know you and they know it's going to hurt you, then they'll know to apologize and that they didn't mean to, or like I had a situation where something happened and it affected my relationship, and I remember I got blamed, and I can look back now and I see why, or from the standpoint from him, you know what I mean. But I I'm lost in my train of thought almost. So with that situation though, I hurt that person, and I was upset. I was trying to handle it like an adult. Um and maybe I didn't. I don't really know, because I was still, the situation messed me up too. Um but when I hurt that person, I hurt myself. So, but I remember I said, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and it was, yeah, no, cuz how the situation went. So basically, my ex was in another state, and I think we had split up at the moment. And I know I came back down, and because I was staying with my mom, but I was working at the club, and so there was an incident that happened after I left the club one night. I went to go smoke and eat breakfast and whatnot, and ended up this dude. And now I got to go back and recant on the question you asked me earlier, because technically yes I did, but not because I wanted to. It wasn't like my own choice. I definitely felt pressured. I definitely felt like the situation could have gone a couple different ways, but this dude basically had drugs and like it's like, oh, you ain't never done this, that, and the third. And then next thing I know, I'm waking up. And so I, of course, went and got, tested and everything like that. But the scary part, I think, for me was almost knowing, like, I almost got burned. You know what I mean? And that, I feel like I'm very grateful, obviously, that I didn't, but I'm glad I went and got checked and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely, that incident messed up a relationship I had. And it also messed me up because I wanted to do right by the person. I wanted them to know that I was sorry, but I knew why they were blaming me in that sense. And I really don't even know if that's going to answer all of your question.
All good. It's all good. In our closing though, what kind of what's your thoughts on transparency with your children when it comes to, the decisions you've made, the mistakes you've made, even the positive things you've done? Do you think that it's important for your children to know the ins and outs of the decisions you've made and the repercussions you've had to experience? Do you think that's important?
Absolutely. And I've used myself as I tell my kids, I'm your best example of what not to do.
But it's not always necessarily what not to do, but even in a positive
Well,
aspect.
when it comes to a trouble side of like how
Yeah,
I've
sure.
I've got legality issues behind me and my background, my daughter, like honestly, and I don't care if she gets mad if she watches this later, but one of my most proud like moments is knowing that my daughter is still pure. You know what I'm saying? That's an accomplishment. So for me to be able to talk to her just about sex or boys or what have you, and for her to understand how much her body is really her temple. She doesn't have to do anything with anybody, that she doesn't want to do. Um, you know, mm, it's a good question. It's a really
Well,
good
look,
one.
real quick, what did you think about the podcast?
I absolutely love podcasts. I've watched every dang episode, and
Well,
your
what do you
friend
think about
Ty
being on
is
it?
funny. Okay,
Know what?
your friend Ty, he's funny.
Oh yeah, everybody like Ty, the people's champ. What do you think about your experience about being on? And
I
would
feel
you
like
come
it's not
back?
long enough.
So
Like now
you
you
come
got me
back?
started, and now I could just keep on.
All right. Well, we have to get you to come back, man. But I
Yeah,
do appreciate you supporting the podcast, number one. Um, all the watching the episodes, commenting, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Um, and just understanding what the premise of the podcast is and how important it is, not necessarily just a podcast, but just understanding how important that beginning to speak about mental health in our personal lives and just in the community, learning to talk and learning to speak, how important that is to us healing and us growing and us living another day, right? So I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And like I said, I'd love to have you back on one to get
yeah,
more
most
into your
definitely.
story. And even maybe once I had to start having these virtual panel podcasts, maybe I can get you to come on there. But again, I appreciate you coming on. And for those of you guys who are still watching, drop a comment and let us know what you think about Nicole's story and if we should have her back on. And if you haven't already, as always, go follow us on Instagram at minor emotions underscore VDP. Follow us on TikTok at minor emotions the podcast. You can follow the podcast Snapchat. I still have yet to make the personalized one, but the main one that I use for it is next level underscore Big Cafe Herc. And if you haven't already liked this episode, you guys be blessed. Check on each other, check on your loved ones, and peace.